Hello good people, this is FisherTwelve back with another exciting video for you guys today as always, and it is Monday night, so you know we got a lot to talk about, including Brock Lesnar, a potential Shield reunion, or a failed Shield reunion I guess you could say, and a last man standing match in our main event. So let's talk Raw. So at the end of last week's Raw, we had no matches announced, and I think there were about 3 announced prior to the start of the show. The first one was our main event, Roman Reigns versus Braun Strowman in a last man standing match, and then 2 triple threat matches, and the winner of those 2 triple threat matches would face off in a singles match, and the winner of that would go on to face Alexa Bliss for the Women's Championship in place of Bayley. So at the end of last week's Raw, we had no matches, and we ended up with 3 at the beginning of this match, or at the beginning of this Raw, rather. But this episode of Raw, coming from Toronto, started off with a Miz TV segment, and he was looking for revenge from Jason Jordan, or on Jason Jordan, and instead he got Curt Angle announcing a very special guest, Brock Lesnar, who comes out with Paul Heyman, of course. And there was some great promo work in this segment from The Miz, just sort of stealing Paul Heyman's thunder almost, copying Heyman to a T. Now, Paulie Dangerous was coming back equally as strong with the promo work. He was going on this whole roleplay thing, which I wasn't following for a second, and then it all started to make sense, and you could see Brock Lesnar starting to loosen up a bit, but this crowd was hyped for Joe. I made a note of that, but after, we'll talk about this crowd more because this was a very interesting crowd. So I'm taking their hypeness for Joe, not necessarily with a grain of salt because everyone loves Joe, but this crowd, I would not base the opinions of the WWE universe based off this crowd we had tonight. Let's just say that. But the one thing that we can get from this segment is to not mess with Jason Jordan and Curt Angle, because you will get your dues, that's for sure. And next we had a repeat match. There's a repeat match every show now. This was Seth Rollins versus Sheamus. Far better than their match last week. And it's almost a theme now with WWE where like 2 guys will face off one week, match will be okay, and then they'll face off the next week and the match will be even better. And of course you could probably chuck that up to like, naturally, if you spend more time working with an opponent, you'll get better with them or working with them. So naturally, their second encounter would be better than their first. But it shouldn't be so varying in degree, right? It's not like their first match is awesome and their second match is like even more awesome. It's like their first match is bad or awful or barely decent, and their next match is good, really good. It's like they've never been in a ring before with each other or wrestled professionally, and then suddenly they look back at the footage and they see what they did wrong, and then they get better by the next week. And it's an unfortunate trend that I'm seeing, and I don't know if it's intentional or not. Someone else pointed out that pay-per-view matches are infinitely longer, even though the payoff isn't as great, and it's just to get you to watch next week's show. There's a graph about that. I'll talk about it in a later video. It's a pretty interesting topic. But the finish on this match is lame. They had the distraction. I'm pretty sure it was the same exact finish as last week. I'm watching the match and I'm like, oh my god, Cesaro jumping up onto the banner as Seth Rollins is on the ropes, and he jumps off and tries to kick him and ends up getting rolled up. Did I see this last week? I'm having deja vu. But after Seth Rollins loses the match, he decides to take on Sheamus and Cesaro 2-on-1, or 1-on-2 rather. I don't understand why he gets his butt handed to him. He looks, I'm going to steal a quote from Bryan Alvarez right now, or a phrase from Bryan Alvarez. He looks like a total geek because he just jumps into attacking 2 guys significantly, I don't want to say better than him, but definitely bigger than him in terms of size. That's not a plan. That's not a good characteristic or a characteristic representative of the architect. It just didn't make sense, and they made sure to stress real hard that there was no cavalry coming for Seth Rollins. There was no help or anything like last week. He was all on his own, which obviously set up his run-in for later, which we'll talk about in a bit. But next up, we had JJ versus Curt Axl, or it was supposed to be Curt Axl, but he was too injured from taking a German suplex and an F5 from Brock Lesnar. Apparently, that is enough out of wrestling gear to incapacitate you for the entire night. Just those two moves alone. That's quite the selling, I'll say that. So they replaced him with a local guy. I'm sure he's probably been on WWE before. At some point, he's probably had a tryout or something. Went by the name Jean-Pierre Goulet. And this is where the Toronto crowd really started to show its true colors, I guess you could say, because they started off with "Let's go jobber" chants, and they were booing every move that JJ was doing, and it was just not a good look for this angle. It was atrocious. It clearly was not the reaction they want, unless ultimately they're going to turn Jason Jordan heel, like they had Kurt Angle be when he originally came into the WWE. Unless that's the direction they're going in. If they're trying to make him a face, it's not really working out to the point where the Toronto crowd was cheering for a jobber. Next up, we had the Bayley injury update, and again, the Toronto crowd, they start booing Bayley. And that just goes to show how much WWE has absolutely killed her character. She was arguably the most over woman at one point. I don't want to say John Cena level of over, but she got the biggest pop out of all of the girls on the roster, and now she's getting booed during an injury goodbye speech. It's like, I don't even know what to say. I'm speechless. It's like, how did you mess this up so badly that they're booing her? The only way I could see them reviving her character is if she goes away for a good amount of time during this injury and then comes back, later down the line to save someone, or maybe there's a women's Royal Rumble that's been loosely rumored. Maybe she returns at that and wins that, but there needs to be some big return for Bayley after a long leave of absence in order to revitalize her character, I feel like. Let me know you guys' thoughts in the comments down below. Are you still on board with Bayley? Are you done with Bayley? How do you think they could fix her character? Let me know down below. Next up, we had the first of 3 triple threat matches tonight. We had Sasha Banks versus Alicia Fox versus Emma, and it was obvious that Sasha was going to get the victory here, especially with the Bayley endorsement. And the crowd, again, the Toronto crowd, they wanted Emma to win so badly. They were chanting for Emma throughout the entire match. But as I predicted last week, I don't think Emma's burying is only going to last 1 week. I think it's going to happen for a bit, so that's what they did again. They made her the one to tap out. They easily could have had Alicia Fox do it, someone who's hasn't even been on Raw and however long, has been on 205 Live doing this whole Cedric Alexander, Noah Mandar thing. They could have just had her tap and no one would know, but instead they have the person that everyone wants to win tap. And there was one point where Sasha Banks gave a Shining Wizard, as the announcers refer to it as, but it was pretty much a straight knee to the head, and I think it was on Emma too. I'm surprised actually that it didn't knock Emma out because it looked awful. Next up, we had Enzo Amore and the Big Show versus The Club. Enzo Amore came out and started doing a promo, and when he starts talking now, I just start snoozing. I'm not even paying attention to what he says. I don't even care. I'm just waiting for the next thing to come after he finishes talking. It's interesting because this was obviously a nothing match. It was just to try to further the feud with Big Cass, and I really have no idea why they're burying Big Cass if they're trying to make him look like he's the strong, dominant heel. then he should be winning week after week after week after week, and then maybe he loses on the pay-per-view. But it looks like the booking they're going to do, which is, kind of the booking that they do now, is where the guy loses week after week after week after week and then is victorious on the pay-per-view. Now, I find this feud to be boring and repetitive, and it doesn't seem like it's going anywhere, yet it continues to draw good numbers both on TV and on YouTube, so that's the reason why they keep rolling with it. And this did eventually lead to a match being announced at SummerSlam. We all knew that Enzo and Big Cass and Big Show were going to have a match. But what we didn't know, and the stipulation announced is that it's going to be a shark cage match with Enzo Amore suspended 20 feet above the ring in a shark cage. So we get 2 of them in 1 year. This has definitely got to be a first. I just hope Enzo isn't afraid of heights. Then we had a promo from Finn Balor, and this was just an absolutely excellent promo. Finn Balor, so good on the mic. And I enjoy that they're trying to add a new layer to this whole teleportation thing. So they now have Finn doing it, and this time when Bray did it, Finn perched up onto the top rope. So, they're just doing something different with it. It's nice to just see it be switched up. But the fact that Finn keeps getting one over Bray Wyatt week after week after week makes me think that he's getting the I'm gonna lose at SummerSlam booking, which I hope isn't the case. Then we had Dean Ambrose versus Cesaro. Now, I'm not really sure why we had to have the repeat match this week, and instead why we couldn't have Seth Rollins versus Cesaro and Dean Ambrose versus Sheamus, but I don't do the booking. I don't know why. It didn't seem like the way they had the match up tonight added to the storyline. It seems like they could have reversed it, kept things fresh all around, and been fine. But the Dean Ambrose Cesaro match was actually a pretty good match. There was an excellent superplex spot where it looked like Cesaro was going to superplex Dean just straight outside of the ring, but Dean Ambrose counters it and puts them back into the ring. And Dean gets the roll-up victory here, but Cesaro and Sheamus start beating him up, and Rollins comes out to save Dean, and the Toronto crowd is absolutely loving it, and you can see it in Dean's face. He's fighting with himself. He doesn't know if he should. He doesn't really want to, but he says, I gotta forgive Seth. It's been a while. I don't know what else I want him to do. And he throws out the shield fist, and the crowd goes even crazier. I'll even say this. I was freaking out. I'm sitting in my couch, and I'm like going, yes, 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 along with the crowd. And Seth freaking Rollins freaking rejects it. I was shocked. I couldn't believe it. I was baffled. I was speechless. I was without speech. I could not believe that he did that. So I have no idea where this feud is going to go, but it should be interesting to see next week. Next up, we had our weekly 205 Live segment, Ari Davari versus Akira Tozawa. And this was just an okay match. Definitely not as good as the last couple 205 Live matches we've had on Raw. But I think the point of this was just to put Tozawa over before SummerSlam and show that his shoulder is now healthy and it's no longer taped up and he's good to go. One weird point during the match, Titus O'Neil was on commentary and he called Tozawa his property. And that was just interesting, I guess you could say. And then next we had our second triple threat match, Mickie James versus Dana Brooke versus Nia Jax. And no surprise here, Nia Jax won, and there was a couple seconds early on into the match, Nia Jax takes Mickie James and just completely manhandles her and tosses her across the ring, and I'm just thinking like, oh my god, Nia Jax is going to injure the entire women's roster. I could not believe that after she had injured Bayley, they booked this match for her to just slam and manhandle Dana Brooke and Mickie James. I just couldn't wait for this match to be over. And I wasn't a fan of the predictability of these two matches. It would have been nice if they had put Sasha and Nia in the same triple threat match, and they had whoever they intend on winning next week just win that triple threat match, and they have someone like Emma or Mickie James or Dana Brooke or just someone extra that you wouldn't be expecting to be in the contender scene, because that way you can elevate another superstar for later. But instead, they just decided to bury their roster except for the same two people that they haven't been burying. And then we had our main event, Braun Strowman versus Roman Reigns in a last man standing match. And this match was really, really good. I enjoyed it a lot. It wasn't the best last man standing match by any means, and I don't know if this was necessarily the best Braun Strowman-Roman Reigns match by any means, but Braun and Roman Reigns, they definitely have some chemistry. They're a good combination. I like seeing them together, and this was a really good match. A scale I use to determine matches now is sort of this like YouTube Daily Motion scale, and it's like if someone posted about this in a comment on Reddit or on some forum, would you go and search up this match on YouTube and go watch it? Or would you search up on Daily Motion and go watch it? And in my head, I think, 5 or so years from now, Roman Reigns, maybe he's a super champion, and Braun Strowman, maybe he's a champion, and you hear like, oh, Braun Strowman and Roman Reigns were once in a last man standing match. Ooh, I want to go check that out, and you tune into you would tune into the WWE Network to see it, not YouTube and Daily Motion, but you get the point I'm trying to make. It's definitely one of those matches that you might search later, and I think that makes it a good match in my mind, at least by WWE standards. The finish just didn't make sense. The ref got to like a 7 or an 8 count before Joe interfered. And even if Joe's interfering, it's like, why is the ref stopping his count? It's a no disqualification match as the announcers are screaming over the mics as Joe's attacking him and no bells being rung. It's like, why aren't you continuing the count? But instead, the ref waits for Joe to finish his chokehold, and then once Roman Reigns is down, he's like, oh, okay, I'll start my count all over again from 0, and then Braun Strowman gets the victory. It just didn't make any sense whatsoever. But overall, this was just an okay Raw, not a lot of exciting stuff. By the time they got to the main event, I was super tired, and that's just really the theme. It's interesting that last week they had put the more important match or the big main event at the beginning of the second hour, and then this week they moved it back into its normal spot. And really, I just sort of wish that Raw was only 2 hours. I think 3 hours is way too long. But yeah, like I said, just an okay Raw. Not a lot of exciting stuff happened, and we'll have to see what we get next week. Next week, Raw is in Boston, and you can bet your bottom dollar that I will be there. So I'm not sure what that means for Monday's video, or rather Tuesday's video that I usually film Monday night. That will probably just go up regular time. I'll just have to film it probably Tuesday morning as opposed to filming it Monday night, because I imagine I'll probably be out late Monday. And that episode of Raw is going to be the Going Home Raw show before SummerSlam, so hopefully it's a really good show. We might get to see a Shield reunion between Seth Rollins and Dean Ambrose. We're going to get to see probably something between Roman Reigns and Samoa Joe, which should be good. And Brock Lesnar is scheduled to be there, so whatever he's going to be doing should be interesting. I'm hoping he's just going to be laying everyone out. That would be excellent. I do have a seat that is facing the hard camera, so there's a good chance that you may see me on the television if you're watching. This other note too, I will be super, super disappointed if Sasha Banks loses in Boston again. She lost in Boston last week they had a show here, and if it happens again, I will not be a happy camper. Just want to end on that note. But let me know your thoughts on this week's Raw in the comments down below. Did you like it? Did you not like it? Was it good? Was it bad? What did you think of the main event? What are you thinking going into SummerSlam? Let me know down below. But that is going to bring us to the end of today's video. So if you enjoyed it, make sure to give it a like. And if you want to see more videos like this, then go ahead and click on that subscribe button. But other than that, guys, enjoy the rest of your day and take care.